Hello everyone. I hope you've all had a lovely Christmas, and I'd like to wish you all a very happy and healthy new year. And so we're now starting a new set as we're now on the 3rd of January. And so I decided that due to the weather and the present COVID situation, which is a little bit worsened at the moment, we may be spending more time indoors. So I thought it would be a nice time to concentrate on still life subjects. And so this week I'm starting with demonstrating some pots. I'm also enjoying looking at the different shapes, etc., that plants make when they are going over. So my composition also is going to include some twigs and dried leaves and things. These are the colours that I'm going to use. I have photographed so that you can see what I've actually got set up in front of me. I've actually got this set up but at a distance because I wanted to make it smaller, and it is actually quite a large pot, so I thought that if I put it at a distance I'll be able to see it better. Okay, so first of all though, I would like to actually just put that out of the way. I would actually like to just go through a few points with you. So these are the different colours that I think I want to put in my pot, which will be actually making it slightly brighter and more colourful than I see it, okay? And these are the colours that I'm going to use for twigs and things. First of all though, I want to just go over a few things. I'm just going to turn this music down a bit. That's a bit better. But actually, while I'm talking about the music, I've found some music that is more suitable than anything else I've looked at so far for YouTube, and it's created by a guy called Scott Buckley, and he's composed quite a lot of different pieces of music, which he's quite happy for people to use on YouTube, free of copyright or anything else, just so long as I mention his name. And so here we go. His name is Scott Buckley, and I do quite like some of his background music, and so I'm just going to see how that works out today. Okay. So when we're working on still life, one of the most important things is to make sure that our pictures are balanced when you set it up. Odd numbers do obviously work better than even numbers for placement, but you also have to think about balance. For instance, if I created something like that and framed it, I'm going to have this huge space here, whereby you might feel you needed to put something else in, like a window in the background or something else going on in the background, so it starts to get a little busy. So think about that, make sure that your picture is balanced, using the same items but rearranging them into something that does work more easily for you. And don't forget that overlapping always helps and makes a difference to your pictures. Too many gaps will just upset the eye when looking at it, and the eye will be going all over the place trying to work out what's going on. Another thing, if you're creating a vessel as I am today, make sure that if you put a subject in, flowers or twigs or whatever you decide, that you again keep it balanced. This looks very top heavy, there's a big gap here, so you know it just isn't easy to look at. So think about that. If your picture goes out, if your subject goes out of the picture in one place, it needs to go out in at least one other place too. So that's something else to remember. So that one is more balanced insofar as this isn't too tall for the vessel, which looks as if it might tip over, and it keeps it all together and is easier to look at. Okay. So when creating placement, triangles nearly always work. Okay, so there are 3 objects there, different shapes and sizes, but created in the shape of a triangle, so that works. Here we go again, I've created another triangle, but as I've just said before, if that went in a frame, there would be a lot of space here, so you may feel you wanted to put something in the background. So changing that situation around by perhaps putting that here, you'd still create a triangle, but it would work better, and you wouldn't feel that you'd got a big gap left. Putting more things in obviously works, as long as you place them well, create overlapping and try to create a triangle. So as a rule of thumb, a triangle will always work for you. Okay. Right, so I've made a start by putting down a wintry background with using cling film and a little bit more colour at the base here that I've also used or will use in painting the pots. So I'm, as I said, going to put more colour into the painting of these pots. I'll start with the large one. And I'm going to work wet on wet. And so I'm going to wet the whole of this pot to start with, apart from the handle, I think. And then allow my colours to roam around in that space and mingle. I usually stick to, and if you want to, stick to painting just terracotta colours. Then burnt sienna and alizarin crimson always make for a nice terracotta colour. But actually I'm going to try some different colours in here today and keep it a little bit more colourful in contrast to the cool background. So I'm going to pop down, this is going to be my light side, so that's something that I have to bear in mind. So first of all I'm going to put a little bit of raw sienna down here to keep the sunny side. And don't be afraid to leave white paper ever. It's always going to be helpful. Right, so next I'm going to pop some burnt sienna on the top of this and allow it to mingle. And I've got some brown madder here, which is warmer still, so I'm popping that on the top. I have two potters in the group, so they should have a lovely selection of pots to go at. So don't think that you necessarily have to create a pot like me. You can use any kind of pot that you like for your picture. Just so long as it's a pot and it's a vessel. Whatever inspires you. Now I want to put a little bit more depth of colour in here. So I'm going to pop down some, on the top of this, I'm putting some ultramarine blue to create some grey. This, I'm trying to create a very beaten up looking pot. But this blue over the top of the colours that I've already popped down is going to actually look quite nice, and when it's a little bit drier I can also create some shadows using these colours. There's a bit of a shadow going under here now. Go and keep that light that side there. But maybe there'll be a little bit of shadow underneath this handle, which is going to be painted separately. My paper is crinkling a little bit, but it will even out because I've not only got it stuck obviously in a block, but I've also taped it. Now it needs to get dark at the bottom here, so got some of that green mix and also just plain Payne's grey going in here. There's a chip here, so I want to just use that separately. Excuse me. So while it's still damp, you can go back and create a little bit more texture by just dotting in further colours. It needs to be really dark under here. A little bit of shadow, I think, behind here. Tiny little touches of water on the top. So I'm going to wait now and see what happens with that and work on this little top area. But I quite like the colours and I like the light and dark that we're getting. So let's work on this top area. My twigs, I think I can paint over the top of all of this, so they're going to be quite dark looking. It's very beaten up around the rim, so I'm actually trying not to make smooth marks but just broken marks so that it looks broken and chipped. So I'm not following what I see in the pot in front of me, only so far as the shape is concerned. and the rest of the time I'm just popping in colours that I want to use. I'm going to leave that to dry before I play around with that more. And create the handle, which again is going to be in the light. So not too much work here. And you can just see a tiny bit of that handle over that side. So working wet on pottery always works quite well actually. You do get the sort of marks that look realistic. Right, so that's got to wait. I've got to wait for that one to dry. So I'll work on this little one at the back here and try to vary it a little bit. So I think what I'm going to do is not use those same colours. This one's very broken, but nevertheless it's got some twigs in it. So I think I'll just go for the madder. The little broken parts are going to look lighter, so I'm leaving those to paint separately. So pots are quite forgiving really. You can not always have to worry too much about getting them completely symmetrical and all of that kind of thing, but it's quite different to when we paint something like china or glass. And so I would say this week don't go for the glass, because I'm going to very possibly work on glass next week. Right, so I'm keeping this side nice and light. So that's quite a different, using similar colours but in a different order and using them differently. So that pot looks quite different to that one. So always look out for variation. And it's got a lot of soil inside, but again I need to wait for that to dry before I carry on. This one, I'm going to keep it nice and bright, I think, in the front. It's going to be darker underneath here on this occasion, and the light will be coming down onto it. think they're drying up okay. But I can't go much further with these pots at the moment until they dry. Maybe I can just work on the inside of this one. So that greeny colour is a colour that you see on pots quite often, that when they've been left outside to get weathered. It's a little broken bit here. It's very pointy, so I've got my dagger brush out so that I can get that shape a little bit more easily. So don't forget about your brushes, that might help you to create the sort of marks that you need. Well, that's quite wet, so that's got to wait to dry. I'm going to stop now and allow all of this to dry, because I don't want to spoil it and not be able to create these little broken areas. Right, that's dried up. And while I was waiting for it to dry, I just put a little bit of a depth inside those pots, indicating maybe some soil in the inner side of the pot there. So now I just need to create some little lighter areas where the pots are broken. So don't worry if it isn't completely dry, it's just going to pull some of that colour up into there. So if that's kept lighter, it's going to indicate the fact that those pots have got chips on them. Similar thing here, this is a very broken one. I like them when they're broken. Maybe a little bit of white. And maybe a few markings on there as well, just to make it look a bit grubby. So that this dagger brush is really good for this kind of thing. Right, so hopefully they look fairly natural. It's to be quite dark, I think, in here. So don't forget to soften edges if you feel you need to. Not allow it to run around too much. Okay, so they look quite good and quite shabby, which is what I was looking for. Now, do I need to put anything else on here? Wouldn't mind a little bit more warmth just here. And I'm going to maybe indicate a crack, I think. So I'll start it here, just with the point of this brush. Right, so now that's got a nice big crack in it. And now all that's left to do is to put a few twigs and dead things in there. And I've got all the browns out that I've been using before with things like the teasels and so on. So I've got, what did I say I brought out here? These are the twig colours. I've got the burnt sienna, the burnt umber, neutral tint, Payne's grey and ultramarine blue. Whether or not I shall use them all, I don't know, but they're there in case I need to. So here's the burnt umber. I'm going to use my sword brush, trying not to have it too wet, and indicate not exactly what I'm seeing in front of me, because that isn't going to be too possible, but just some nice twiggy marks. And this is really good practice for using this sword brush. So I wouldn't necessarily draw, I just gave myself a bit of an indication of where I wanted to go, because I wasn't sure if I wanted to go out of the page or not. It's possible that I will. But there are so many twigs and things going on in this pot that I don't think I'll get them all done, but I'm just giving you an idea of the way I'm going to work this. It's very delicate actually. I just love all these different shapes that these dead twigs and plants create. But obviously if it doesn't appeal to you and you don't want to go for this, find yourself something different to put in your pots, or in fact just leave them empty. I'm keeping an eye on what I've got in front of me, but I'm not obviously following it completely. It would take too long and be too tedious. But it's all kind of bending over that way, and presumably when the plant was alive, trying to get to the light, which was over to the left, in contrast to where my light is on this. Make them different thicknesses. Different tones. Look for variety. And now I'm going to make my colours a little bit juicier and pop some smaller twigs on here. And this brush is absolutely excellent for twiddling around with. So lighter colours and just... Where's my picture gone? You can see that this has got all these little feathery tiny dried up twigs and leaves and things, which is adding interest and really nice fun to paint. And so I have gone out of the picture this side, so I need to make sure I go out of the picture at the top as well. And I don't think I've overbalanced my pot, so thought about that a bit. Right, so obviously I'm going to carry on and do more of this, but I don't think you need to see me do all of that. So I'm actually just dropping some water back on there so that that mingles and makes even better marks for me. Don't forget it's watercolour and it loves water. And actually that's all going to dry up looking really pretty. You could put a little bit of green in, just to show that it was alive at one point. So I'll carry on with this, and obviously you'll see the end result. But there needs to be something in this pot as well, and I haven't actually yet decided what that might be. But I think maybe some just straight twigs. But it really was all about showing you the pots today. So I hope you'll find a nice pot or vessel of some kind to create something with. Nice still life. You could maybe still find some leaves and the odd berry or something to pop in a pot, create a nice picture, and even do something that might be suitable for a card or something for next Christmas, because there's still holly and berries and Christmassy things around. So obviously if you're doing one, the placement needs to be good, and you need to actually ground everything that you paint in the way of a still life. And there we have 5 items, because I counted the cork in as the 5th item, and so it's quite clustered. It creates a triangle, and I'll pop some snowdrops and hellebores inside some of the pots. So think about having things that are lying down as well. You can use techniques that we've used before, blowing the twigs perhaps, or some twigs, use splattering. This is candle wax on this particular pot, which created really good, very realistic marks. That looks a lot like the actual pot, but make sure that you make the marks that you need, because that's irreversible. It's not like the masking fluid, which you can take off. If you put candle wax on, that's it. Your shapes can't be taken away. So concentrate on pots this week, but as I said, feel free to choose any type of pot that inspires you and fill it with whatever you wish, or leave it empty. Beginners should try to keep it simple, because it isn't as easy as it might seem. But it would be nice to see improvers giving themselves a bit of a challenge, so try for that. I will include some notes, which I hope will help you to arrange your still life and so on. And next week I'm going to continue with vessels and painting my subject using with glass, demonstrating the painting with glass. So have a good week everyone, and please stay safe. I'll be with you again next Monday. Take care. Bye bye.